What are the differences between an online store doing around $10,000 a month using Google Ads and one doing 100,000? Now that's a pretty big gap, and what I noticed after working with around 200 businesses one-on-one and managing dozens of businesses ad spend in total so far is that there are certain strategies, methods, and simply things that those 100K businesses are doing that those doing 10K are not. And I'm not talking, of course, about like the scaling phase, because obviously those doing 100K are in scaling phase whereas the others are not. But I'm talking about specific ways to run their campaigns, about specific features of Google Ads the 100K businesses are using that the 10Ks are not. And in today's video, I want to show you these differences. I want to compare the two levels so that maybe you understand that there is something you should be doing if you want to grow your business that you're not doing right now. So with this being said, let's jump straight to the computer, and I hope that you will find some new insights here in this video. If you do, please leave a like, and let's get started with the video. All right, so with this being said, let's explore what these different types of businesses or different, levels in business are doing differently in regards to Google Ads. And we should start with shopping before we then jump into search as well as some general stuff. And in terms of shopping, those $10,000 per month businesses are typically using a very basic campaign structure, right? They have all mixed campaigns, some individual products. They're using a testing campaign, they're using one to scale a single product, but there is no real plan behind that structure, and it's like pretty messy, it's pretty all over the place. And when I talk to these, typically what I notice is that they just set the campaigns up in some random way, right? They have a very basic or non-existent negative keyword structure. So negative keywords in shopping are, I would say, maybe not as important as in search, because people can at least see your images and prices and everything beforehand. But still, if you are not using negative keywords, you're losing big time. Like, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. You're getting people that have the wrong intent, even though they might click your product and your ad because they find it somewhat interesting. If you see the search query they use, you can already tell that even though they might click on the ad, they are not relevant for your business, because sometimes you are smarter than Google in what's the right person. And especially in the beginning, when you don't have much data yet, you should use a lot of negative keywords and a lot of sort of manual thinking when it comes to getting the right people. And they don't regularly test their prices and their images and maybe also their titles. Now, titles is not that important, but you should absolutely test your prices. So if you are getting a lot of sales on a product, check if you could maybe, maximize your margin by further increasing the price. And if you're not making lots of sales, you should try reducing the price and see if maybe price is an issue. And I had cases where literally dropping the price from $50 to $45 caused a massive increase in conversion rate, probably because competitors were charging similarly or something like that. And I had cases where we could literally increase the price from, let's say, $70 to $80 without seeing any real loss in terms of actual sales. So that's extremely important to maximize your profits. Of course, there are more points than that, but these are like the key points that I see all the time. If I have to really summarize them, of course, there are more details. Of course, there are more specific steps people are missing out on, but these are the typical things that I observe with the clients and the people I work with. Now, the $100,000 per month business, on the other hand, has a more sophisticated campaign structure with priorities for high value products and different negative keyword levels, which means that a product that has a high margin gets a different bid. A product that has a high margin has a different set of negative keywords. As we can see here, multiple negative keyword lists based on competitors, on value, etc. So if you have competitors, you should form a negative keyword list only with competitors that you can assign to campaigns. But at the same time, once a product gets a lot of sales, sometimes it can still be useful to still show up for competitors for that product, but not for all the other products. So if a product is very powerful in your store, if you get a ton of sales, if it's a high conversion rate, chances are that you can even be profitable with that product for some search queries that are not useful for your other products. That's where this structure comes in. Also, they regularly test stuff for both their overperformers and their underperformers. So if something is not working, they are trying to, or they are like putting it into another campaign, lowering the bids, doing all kind of stuff here. They are testing new products, and those that are performing, of course, they are treated in a different way, like trying to scale them, trying to increase their bids. As I said, coming up with a new negative keyword structure here and just optimizing images, prices, etc. Also, they use smart and normal shopping campaigns. Both can be great. There are cases where smart campaigns do 100K per month alone. There are cases where normal shopping massively outperforms smart. You should test both, and you should test both on a regular basis. What I see a lot, people try one smart shopping campaign, doesn't work, they never do it again. Do it regularly with different products, in different situations. You may realize that suddenly it's working for you, even though it didn't work before. In regards to search ads, when we're looking at the $10,000 per month level, I see people that, maybe set up a single test search campaign. So they thought, okay, you know what, I heard that search is actually useful, so let's try that out, right? It doesn't work that way, because search is even more difficult than shopping when it comes to making it work, because you're literally just testing one thing. People cannot see the price, the image, everything up front. So you have to be even better, and you have to do even more testing to find something that really, really works well. Also, they randomly test a single product or category, as this gets pretty close to what I just said. Sending traffic to a product that has been working on shopping, realizing that it doesn't work on search, and then giving up on search completely. You have to constantly test categories, constantly test products to make this work properly. And usually they test with a fairly low budget. They spent $100, maybe $200 on a search campaign, and then tell people, hey, search doesn't work. It didn't work for me, doesn't make sense. Yes, of course, you should, allocate your budget in the best possible way when you are starting out. So that means usually spending more on shopping. But once you are getting to a certain level of scale, once you really want to try search as well, you have to dedicate more money to it, which means at very least something like $500 when you are already making good sales with shopping, to really try a whole bunch of campaigns and strategies. With the 100K per month level, on the other hand, search typically contributes 20 to 30% to sales overall. There are cases where search does way more than that, and there are cases where we do only shopping with this level of scale, but that's usually what I see on a fairly regular basis. They test categories and products, as I just said. So a typical search campaign structure could be one campaign advertising a certain category, let's say necklaces, and in this category in this campaign we have certain ad groups for gold necklaces, silver necklaces, necklaces for women, for men, whatever it is, right? We could even split that even better, but just as an example. And while we are doing several campaigns for different categories, we also have campaigns for the best performing products. And by doing that, we can really say that if that doesn't work, then probably search isn't doing that well for the business right now. But by having this very in-depth search campaign structure, we make sure that we test it in the best possible way, and most likely we will also see some results with it. Then we focus on 100% relevance. So the keywords, the ads, and the landing page should work hand in hand so that everything works perfectly, and it will be constantly optimized here. If you are just running a plain ad with some keywords, trying a single landing page, and then you say it doesn't work, that's already why. Because search, as I said in the beginning, shopping is way more straightforward. With search, there is more guesswork involved. We have to test more to come up with a combination that works, and once we find that, we can scale it to the moon. But first we have to get there by really trying to get 100% relevance, and then scaling when we have that. Also, running experiments regularly is key here, because you cannot really divide traffic or split it 50-50, right? You cannot run two separate ads and say, okay, that's now a 50-50 test, because Google is still allocating the budgets by itself. So we have to run experiments, which is the closest we can really get to a really scientific type of experiment, because then we can actually control the amount of traffic that each of our campaigns are getting, and we can then test bidding strategies, landing pages, keywords even, and that type of stuff. Whoops, we have a little issue here. Doesn't matter for now. Let's move on. And that's it. Yes. So the last stuff, the general stuff that is also, important when it comes to these two business types is the 10K per month business uses some basic remarketing, right? And sometimes it's enough. Don't get me wrong here. Doing some basic dynamic remarketing can be fine if you're on a fairly low sales level, but usually they don't think about getting it more sophisticated, which I talk about in a second. They do normally random one-time optimization, right? So you sit there and you think, oh, my campaigns could do better. So suddenly out of nowhere, they jump in and they try to optimize something. They have these sudden bursts of energy to optimize something, and then they leave it run for 1 week, 2 weeks before they do something again. Also, they stop ads after 1 or 2 days of not meeting expectations, whether it's search or shopping. Something doesn't work, something is not generating money, they stop it right away. They never gave Google the chance to optimize, they never gave it a chance to, test several types of people and use the budget in a sort of more wiser or in a wiser way. That's also a very big problem when you are running ads on a platform like Google or Facebook, where actually it has to optimize itself first. Yes, sure, if you're on a shoestring budget, doesn't make sense to wait 2 weeks for something to optimize just for the sake of doing that. But if you want to get the best results and if you want to do it seriously, you should always dedicate, at least like 4 to 7 days to something, depending on the budget, of course. If you spend $200 a day, you can see some really tangible data after 3 days. But if you're just running on a $10, $15 per day budget, don't expect any meaningful insights after 3 days. With the 100K per month, they usually use remarketing funnels with individual bids and incentives like coupons and audiences. So people that have visited the site over the past 3 days see a different ad or maybe get a different bid than someone that visited 2 weeks ago, right? Using a coupon for these people specifically. Also, they set optimization routines for ongoing improvement. It's something that I do with so many businesses that come to me, and we, whether I consult them personally or whether I manage their ads, we set up a optimization routine that we go through, not necessarily every single day, depends on the account, but maybe once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, depending on really the size. The bigger the account is, the more often we do those routines where we, have a checklist, do all kind of stuff. Really depends on the account what we're doing as well. But we make sure that way we maximize the ROAS at any given time. That's not that sudden burst of doing something, but really having a plan to commit to. And also, eventually, they outsource parts of the work. Now, obviously, that's something that a small business cannot do, right? And it makes sense. But once they hit that level of 100K, 200K, I work with businesses doing almost $1 million a month on Google. And in these cases, either they hire someone full-time to do that, or they use someone like me, or they hire someone to do minor tasks in Google Ads like keyword research, but they eventually outsource some part of that so that they can focus better on other parts of the business. Last but not least, they assign realistic budget and expectations. So as I just said, instead of stopping campaigns after 3 days, instead of trying to see massive results with a $10 per day budget, they assign realistic budgets. Just as on Facebook, it makes sense to assign big enough of a budget so that, for example, daily conversions or multiple conversions a week are realistic. With a $10 per day budget, it will take a whole lot of time if you're starting from scratch before you see like a handful of conversions. Also, they set their expectations right. They don't expect a miracle after 7 days. They don't expect to jump onto Google, throw 20 or 50 or $100 at it and expect to get like 10 sales or something very, very quickly. Yes, typically you see sales on Google quicker than on Facebook, even though they're a little harder to scale, but you should still be realistic here to, not get disappointed and things like that. So finally, the strategies that get you to 10K don't get you to 100K on Google Ads. That's very important. You can get to 10K with all those very simple things, as I just described: basic shopping, basic search campaign. Easily with 1 or 2 shopping campaigns that are running decently well, you can get to those 10K a month, but not to 100K. And that's where you have to step up your game. That's where you have to be more careful, where you also have to work more on your landing pages and do all that type of stuff that we discussed in this video very briefly. And run your ads the way a 100K business does, just on a smaller scale, and focus on profits rather than volume first. That's a very good tip that I can give you guys. Of course, you cannot, use the same budgets that a 100K per month business has, and you cannot utilize every single Google Ads feature at that point. But you should always have in mind, okay, what would a business do that has the money, and what are the things that we just discussed in terms of testing, experimentation? Because in many ways, you can just do what they do, like this more sophisticated way of running ads, but on a smaller scale with a smaller budget. Maybe instead of testing 7 search campaigns with 5 ad groups each, you test 2 search campaigns with 2 ad groups each. It's not about how much stuff you're doing exactly, it's just about not doing that very simple, oversimplified stuff that those typical 4 to 5 figure businesses are using, and rather thinking as a 6-figure per month business, just on a smaller scale. Sometimes that's not really possible, but oftentimes you can do it, whether it's on a $20, $50, or $100 per day budget. So I hope that this makes sense to you. If you want me to work directly with you on these points, establish an optimization routine, get you closer to that 100K, or if you are there already, to 2, 3, whatever it is, we have done all kind of good stuff in the past, then make sure to check the link in the description so that we can talk and see if there is some room that I can help you really grow your business with Google Ads. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Hope that you found some value in here. I can definitely say that some of these points are the points that make the difference. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment if there is something that you found that you're doing right now that is probably not the right thing, or if you realize that there is something a 100K business is doing that you should start doing now as well. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more Google Ads and e-commerce content. And until then, I wish you all the best with your business. Looking forward to see you next time. Bye-bye.